Today on the Worldview, we're going to talk about basically focusing on Europe aspects along with Ukraine. So Ukraine is going to be the focus of today. Today on the Worldview. So today on the Worldview, the first thing we're going to talk about is Pope Francis. Now, I'm going to tell you that basically Pope Francis sits in the Vatican. The Vatican is part of, Vatican actually is its own little country. So, I mean, they have an ambassador, they have all that stuff. Basically, Pope Francis has stated that Ukraine should have the courage of the white flag. Now I want you all to think about this just for a second. There's the Pope sitting there in his quarters or wherever it is. I don't know how many refugees the Vatican has taken in. I haven't seen St. Peter's Basilica with a bunch of cots. I haven't seen them bring in refugees. I haven't seen Vatican do anything from the standpoint of refugees. Nothing. Zero. They're their own country. They could bring in refugees. Nope, they're not doing that. He is saying to Ukraine, time for you to have negotiations with Russia. Well, I'll tell you what, Pope Francis, why don't you go to Ukraine? Seriously, why don't you go to Ukraine? Go to Ukraine. Why don't you go to the front lines? See what the soldiers are putting up against. They talk about, but Chris, you stated that you weren't for giving any more aid to Ukraine. I'm saying that aid has to come with accountability. I realize that counting bullets is not going to happen on the front line, but the amount of bullets we're giving them should be inventoried. If they ask for 100,000 more rounds of ammunition, then we need to inventory that and make sure we count how many, what are we giving them in the way of weaponry. Also, the Abrams tanks are just about to go there. They're just about to go there. I mean, we're giving them basically frontline tanks here very soon. So, I mean, that's going to be something to behold. And also the amount of fuel they need and the maintenance and everything else, that's going to be a tough one to, I'm sure they're training them now to be able to do that. But that's going to be a lot of effort to be able to make that happen. So I think that's very, very important from that standpoint, and to make sure that we have that. Okay, so AP Network News, right? Pope Francis' white flag comment is met by criticism from Ukraine and its allies. No kidding. I'm criticizing it. I mean, I get sick and tired of countries whose leaders are sitting there saying we should do this and we should do that and we should do this and we should do that. It's kind of like, wait a minute. I don't see any Swiss guards that are sitting at the front end of, on the front lines in Ukraine. I don't see French troops. I don't see anybody from the standpoint of troops, doing that. So the white flag aspect, you cannot comment on that. The time for action was the day that Russia invaded the border. The UN should have come out with a special resolution. Screw Russia. They can vote it down. Don't care. They should have said, I don't care if you vote it down. You invaded another country. We're going to have a coalition. The coalition is going to push you out. They should at that point suspend Russia from being a part of the UN Security Council. They said, we're recusing you because you've invaded another country. Done. You're out. And that should be it. I mean, if you invade another country, you're no longer part of that Security Council. Done. I mean, I don't care what the reason is. You're out of there. You have a coalition, you push them out. You maintain territorial integrity. 2014, that was also shameful, and that was not. There was a president, you can look him up in 2014, and a vice president, you can look him up, who allowed the annexation of Crimea, allowed it, should have never allowed it. Should have put troops in there and should have pushed him back out. Said, no, you're not taking this country. So that's it with that. So now Pope Francis is saying, oh, we need to do some peace talks. Really, why don't you do peace talks, Pope Francis? Why don't you have Russia and Ukraine come to the Vatican? Have them come to the Vatican and negotiate a peace. See how that goes. See how easy it is between two countries who are stubborn enough that they're not going to give 1 inch either way. You try to make that work. Have a prayer at the beginning, do whatever you need to do. Yeah, that all works. Sure. That's good. Here's another one. Germany's Olaf Scholz. Now, Olaf Scholz is Prime Minister of Germany. And basically what's happening is he is giving aid, and we're going to show that here in a second. He's giving aid to Ukraine, but the bottom line is that he doesn't want to get involved too much. And the reason is because basically what's happening is that the Russians invaded Ukraine on the basis that there was Nazis in Ukraine. Germany doesn't want to go back into Ukraine because now all of a sudden that gives Russia, Putin's really distorted mind, the ability to take that as even more reason to continue the invasion and to continue taking those areas that he thinks are Russian. So now you have this situation where Olaf Scholz is trying to curtail the amount and type of weapons that he's giving to them because of that situation. So now it just goes round and round and round. I mean, it's really scary how it's all happening. And the scary part about it is that Ukraine says, no, we have no Nazis in Ukraine. That's interesting because Canada, a few months ago, had a problem when the head of the parliament had to resign because he acknowledged during a speech an individual who was living in Canada who he said fought the Soviets during World War II. Turned out that individual was part of an SS Gruppen sub area that was known for its ruthless and bloody methods on Jews, on the enemies of the Nazi state. The guy was a Nazi, and so that is an issue. Living in Canada, all of a sudden this guy was part of a group that was purely Nazism. So it's there's an issue. There's an issue there, and Olaf Scholz doesn't want to exacerbate the situation. What about Ukraine military funding? AP, NORC poll finds, right? Adults fracture along party lines. Democrats want more Ukraine military funding. Republicans want less military funding. And that's just the way it's going to be. I agree with less. Europeans can start to figure it out and start to figure out how they're going to support that stuff. There's no reason for us to be able to do that. So it's really interesting, and so there's an issue there when it comes to that, and it's gonna continue to be that way. Now this one, is Europe doing enough to help against Russia? And this is interesting because of course you got Justin Trudeau, it says the EU and the West. He's Canada, so I just think that's interesting how they put the Canadian right next to the Italian Prime Minister Meloni, and right next to Zelensky, and then next to van der Leyen, who's the EU president. So I just think that's very interesting. BBC did a good job on that. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at support for that. Institute for the World Economy. They do a great job. There's your support tracker right here. Fantastic. Go to Dataset. You could actually download the dataset, which is fantastic. But these are great. Type of assistance per billion, right? EU institutions, 2.2 billion. And you can select the type of aid. So let's pick financial, right? So financial aid, you have 77.2 billion euro on financial aid. United States, 24 billion. So are the EU institutions giving enough assistance? Yeah, I would say so on financial aid aspects. But I want you to take a look at this one right here. This is France. France is less than a billion. Less than a billion euro. Belgium has more, almost twice as much, more than twice as much as France. Belgium. So I think that's really interesting how that's working. What is Switzerland? 0.1 billion from Switzerland. Canada, 3.43 billion. So at least you're given something. Japan, 5.6. United Kingdom, 6. Germany is given 1.41 billion, more than France. Germany is supporting more than France from the financial aid. What about humanitarian aid? Humanitarian aid, EU institutions 2.2, 1.5 Germany, 2.9 billion in humanitarian aid. 2.9 billion. How can Germany be a problem? The reason all stuff is a problem is because, again, Russia is going to use that as, oh, there's Nazis, there's still Nazis in there. So that is a problem. Over here, you have cool stuff. You have you have Estonia. Percent of GDP, 3.6% of GDP is going to Ukraine. I mean, government support to Ukraine. Estonia, Denmark, Lithuania, Norway, Netherlands, Poland, Finland, Germany, still there, Czech Republic, Spain, all the way down here is France. 0.07%. So I don't want to hear, France, about, especially you, Macron, about, look, we're giving, we give and give and give. Really, you give and give and give, really? Because here's France, here's Slovenia. Slovenia's given twice as much percentage of GDP. Twice as much. It's ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous. And the United States, 0.32% of GDP. So, I mean, Estonia's given a lot of GDP here. A lot of their GDP. Then you go into pie charts, which is fantastic. I mean, it's all kind of different things. Data on top 15 donors. Look at this thing. 15 donors. United States, 67 billion euros. EU institutions, 85 billion euros. Germany, 22 billion euros by Germany. 22 billion. Refugee costs. Total aid with refugee costs. Total aid with just refugee costs only. And now you kick that back down, and guess what? Look at that. Refugee costs only. United States, nothing. Nothing. Refugee costs only. Germany, 21.44. I mean, so you have a lot of billions here. Let's take a look at France. Let's see where France is going. France? Hello, France. Are you in here anywhere? Where are you? Maybe you're up here. Hello. Hello. France. There you go. So at least they're given $6 billion. Is it 6 billion? Yeah, I think 6 billion for refugee costs. Good for them. At least they're coming on somewhere along the line. So, I mean, government support to Ukraine by country group. Government support to Ukraine, military aid, billions. Military aid. We've given them $42 billion so far. Germany, 17.7. So, I mean, and there's France. What's France done? 0.6 billion. Yay! So basically 600 million. Nice. Nice going. Yep, France. Let's put troops in. See what I'm saying here? So you can just go on and on. There's a lot of different things here. A lot of different charts you can take a look at. They really are a great data transparency index by data transparency. I mean, look at that. I mean, there's a lot, it's really pretty cool. Total bilateral commitments. So there's a lot of things here with this Kiel Institute. So it's fantastic. Kiel, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is in Germany. So, which is interesting. So that's what's going on there. And then, of course, you can also go to this one, which isn't all that great. It's just refugees from Ukraine by destination. So this is humanitarian. This is Atlantic Council. Refugees per 100,000. Boom, Montenegro. Montenegro and Estonia have taken in more refugees than any other country. And I just want to make sure we have France in here somewhere. So where's France? Yeah, France, 174. 174 they've taken in. We've taken in 30, right? Is that thousands? Per 100,000, right? Total refugees. Let's see, France taking in 118,000. United States has taken in 100,000. So you can take a look at the different refugees. Poland, 1 million. 1 million refugees. A lot of. I mean, this is just amazing. Okay, only a few minutes left. Let's hit some other stories. Portugal voters in election where far right could be kingmaker. Well, guess what? This was before the election. The election now has gone into a runoff, but basically the right wing is making a big play on this. So BBC covered that too. So nice job, BBC. Everything's going to the far right, folks. Belarus. So there's Belarus, and I think it's important to understand that Belarus borders Russia. It borders Russia. So if it borders Russia, that's where it's going to have a situation where you're going to have to sit back and figure out exactly what's going on with Belarus, because Belarus wants to be allied with Russia. But if Belarus were to make a play for the EU and then NATO, that would really put Russia in a bind, because they really rely on Belarus to be their friend, especially with Ukraine, because they border north of Ukraine. So it'd be interesting to see how that all works and what happens with it. So I just want to check the time here. Okay, so we have about 12 minutes left. Let me go one more story. French conservatives blast van der Leyen's technocratic drift, oppose re-election bid, which she's going to get re-elected anyways because she's kind of a centrist. But who's she with? Macron. France thinks that they are the center of Europe, that they are the absolute ones who make all the policy, who do things with other countries, this goes all the way back. And if you want to read my book, you can read my book. Why should we reevaluate our relationship with France? Should the U.S. reevaluate its relationship with France? And go into all the way back to the Revolutionary War, where the French were trying with Thomas Jefferson to have a coup against George Washington. It starts there and just goes on. We should not be trusting the French. We shouldn't. I mean, they've gotten us into more problems. In 1966, they decided they weren't going to be part of NATO. Give me a break. So it's a situation where Macron is trying to edge his way into that situation with the EU. Like, it's the EU, but really France is the center of focus. So I'm hoping that van der Leyen understands that, although they went to China, and of course Macron was, up front, and van der Leyen was kind of like on his coattails. So it was ridiculous. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. The last thing I want to go over is, and this is important, I wanted to show individuals HR 2. House Resolution 2 had to do with Securing the Border Act of 2023. This was introduced May 11th, 2023, right? And by Representative Mario Diaz-Balart, Republican from Florida, 26th District. And basically, what it passed the House, but it never passed the Senate. Went to the Senate, but people need to read this. Here it is right here. You can get it. Read House Bill 2. Read it. Stop taking the media abridged cliff notes on this stuff. Read it. It's it really would have strengthened the border unbelievably. I mean, it had some good stuff in here. Really, really good stuff. And so that went to the Senate, and the Senate kind of hung on to that, did whatever. And this is you can get this right here. There's your it's available to the public, and you can read it. This is the bill. This is the one that everybody's got a problem with. This is the one that's hey, this is a problem area. This is the one that was mentioned in the State of the Union address. And interestingly enough, during the State of the Union address, President Biden talked about his predecessor. I looked up the definition for predecessor. I did. I looked it up. And the definition for predecessor is a person who held a job or office before the current holder. Huh. All right. Directly before or before. In other words, when he said predecessor, could he have been referring to, I don't know, Obama? Maybe he was talking about Obama or George W. Bush or, I don't know, Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, right? Because he didn't mention a name. So that's the idea behind definition, data definition, definitions of things. Very, very important to take a look at that. Anyways, in the Senate, H.R. 815 from H.R. 2 to H. Wow. Anyways, this is it. Emergency National Security Supplemental Bill Text. Read the bill. Read it. Oh, it's long, Chris. Yeah, no kidding. It is long. Yes, it is. 370 pages long. But you know something? It's interesting how you can take a look at this stuff and all of a sudden you say, wait a minute. I don't understand. Why is this in there? Why is this in there? So, I mean, it's funny. There are some real, because it's written by a bunch of lawyers, right? So it's that type of thing. But I highly urge people to go and read the bill. Read it. It's there for you. I just gave you the URL. Bring it down and read it. Read it. And make your own decisions on this stuff. Don't let people try to sway you. Well, are you that weak? Are you that weak as an individual in the United States that you can't go and read for yourself and make your own judgments? Make your own judgment. I don't understand. We're part of the United States. Yes, we're part of a group, but we also can read. Read the stuff. It's there. Yes, it's 370 pages. Read it. Make your own decision. That's all I'm asking. And on that note, while this is still up, I'm going to bid you farewell and go to the summary and the conclusion. And hopefully there's a lot of things that were covered. And as you can see by the top here, there's a lot more things that I could have covered. I'll make that on the next show. Thanks a lot for watching Worldview. Stay tuned for summary and stay tuned for conclusion. Take care. Thanks for watching today on the Worldview. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the European aspect and what type of aid they're giving to Ukraine, and also give you an idea as to the text of the bill that is under battle right now, mentioned in the State of the Union, all kind of different arenas, and you can read this bill and figure out for yourself exactly what's going on, because I think that's really, really important. And speaking of the State of the Union, just one last thing before I go off is that President Biden mentioned his predecessor. If you take a look at the dictionary of the term predecessor, He could mean Obama. He could mean George W. Bush. He could mean Kelvin Coolidge. He could mean Herbert Hoover. Any of those predecessors. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Last shot. And thanks again for watching The Worldview. Take care.